Hola amigos, welcome back to another video. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's okay. Hang in there. We're almost through the tunnel towards the end, hopefully. All right. I keep reading good things. Who knows? But the most important thing is for us to stay healthy and stay indoors. Okay. You guys already know. I don't want to preach at you. Today we are doing a video on this guy, the Robocop Bust, which is already set up for display over here, looking beautiful. One of the things I noticed as I was assembling and showing you guys this beautiful bust was that it was missing a couple of pieces. I showed you the missing gribbly in the back, but we are also missing some very, very recognizable part of the costume hoops that go here. They're kind of like clasps, like fake, clasps, or maybe they were functional. Who knows? But yeah, you guys would immediately recognize them. They're even, I think, on the 2014 figure there. I can't even get up there, but I am showing you guys with my little selfie stick. So what to do about missing gribblies? One thing I do immediately, I keep McMaster bits from McMaster car. If you guys don't know, just kind of go Google that name. And I always try to keep little extra gribblies from them because they're really good to kind of make molds and kind of just like create little kit bashes of things, especially when something like that on the back. It was just kind of like, it looks like something where a hose would kind of hook onto that, right? So that was the missing one. So now it's there. Maybe the angle is a little bit off, but now at least it's not a missing part. But for this, it's something more specific, right? So you could go the machining route, pieces out of like aluminum. You would have to go to AutoCAD and design those and kind of make them, machining style. But I figured since I invested in a CR10S Pro last year, I was like, I really need to use this time to start using my 3D printer a little bit more and learn how to use it. Because one of the reasons why I don't immediately jump into 3D printing when I'm faced with a challenge such as that is that it's easier to kind of fabricate something, right? Like you could do it out of foam, you could do it out of plastic, even ABS plastic, just kind of draw it on there, cut it, and just kind of like put it together. That would be one way to do it. Old school tricks, they're always good to know, those old school tricks, because they get you out of a bind. Sometimes you don't want to overcomplicate things by going the 3D route, but in this case I happen to know very talented people that are already have been kind of messing around with 3D printing for a long time. And I decided to kind of put it out there on Instagram, like, hey, do any of my friends have a file for that part? Because I have seen kind of some 3D printed Robocop armors already out in the wild. And I figured maybe somebody has the whole file, and if they just send me those little loops, I can work with that. But even better, a friend of mine, Diego Valdez, who you might know as Diegator, I'm going to link below and over here to his pages. But he is, oh my God, he's like a super talented designer, engineer. He's a genius. He works like for the itty bitty bits that go in planes, interiors, and things like that. He designs in real life really spectacular pieces of machinery. And if you go check out his profile on Instagram, you'll see the stuff that he does with the Lancer and the Destiny props is just above and beyond. I mean, he goes deep and it's crazy, you guys. Please check him out. But he was like, hey, man, I can help you out with that. I'm almost going to take my lunch here and I can do it in like 10 minutes. I was like, for real, bro? And he's like, yeah. So I took some crude measurements of this right here where these notches would be. So I measured, distance between, the little bits here, how long and wide that is, the distance between here and here. I kind of guesstimated the height and just based it on some pictures that I found online for how that piece should look. We jumped on Discord, which I've never used before. Maybe I'll use it more. If you guys use that stuff, just let me know. But he was like, yeah, man, jump on Discord and, we'll get on the mic and get these pieces designed, and then you'll get an STL file and I can print it. Well, damn, I didn't have a mic, but I had my headset, my VR headset, so I put that on and then we made it happen. And sure enough, he was like super fast. And what else? I've been doing different things on the machine over the quarantine, and mainly thanks to kind of like donate. Like I printed off a bunch of like the headbands for the plastic shields, like these guys. I don't know how comfortable they are. They actually like seem like a little tight, but I printed out of a bunch of these from files that my neighbor sent me. And I was like, I'm gonna do like different kinds of we've been doing different like superhero like cloth masks, just to wear when you have to go out for essentials. And then I started doing, one of my clients hit me up and was like, can you print this one for me? Kind of paint it up, make it look cool. It was a scorpion mask and it actually came out like pretty cool. So then from there, somebody else was like, can you do the Winter Soldier one? And I was like, yeah, man. I mean, anything right now that you guys need printed, hit me up because I want to use the printer. I want to learn how to use it better. I've been learning a lot about like the different settings, like when I post on Instagram and you guys tell me like, oh bro, like you don't need that much support, you can do this, you should try trees, you should try simplified 3D. All of the tips that you guys are giving me on Instagram, they're lifesavers and really filament savers, because I've been doing a lot of waste with the supports. And the raft system was something that was really helpful because the bed that I have is kind of old. I bought the machine used from my neighbor. But anyways, I'm rambling. Let's go back to the thing that this video is about, which are what I did to get the little details that I was missing using 3D printing, and how I am going to finish and match the color of the armor. So let's jump on that. All right, you guys. So we're in the shop area. As you can see, it's a mess. This is not the best backdrop, but bear with me. I got the GoPro right here. You might even see it on the camera over here, but I wanted to have something so that I could show you up close, kind of like how I used to do videos, what the pieces that I'm talking about and the detail in there. Okay, so this is what the piece looked like from the printer. Okay, so you can see, I'm sure a lot of you guys have already seen 3D printed pieces, right? In one place or another. I've seen them even in libraries now. They got 3D printing tutorials, all that. This is the piece that my friend Diego modeled for me, and when I printed it out, everything was perfect, except the only thing was that it was a little, my measurements kind of showed it to be a little bit longer than it should be, and the height was not exactly. So this being a PLA thermoplastic, it was really easy to just kind of warm it up and basically just kind of go like whoop and measure it so that it's like a perfect fit, flush fit on the armor. And that was really what I needed. So no warping, no anything, which was perfect. So yeah, so the main thing that I want to talk to you guys about right now is what I'm going to do to kind of finish this off. And this will work as a general rule when you're trying to print something, to kind of not to mold it, but to actually kind of use it, be it a prop or a mask or something, and you kind of want to give it a good paint job, but you don't want to go into doing the whole mold for it. You just kind of want to prep it as best as you can to kind of paint the actual 3D printed thing and make it look nice. So again, like the scorpion masks and all of those that I did, I've just been going straight from the printer to the steps that I'm about to show you and then shipping them off. Okay, so this is what it looks like right out of the printer, and you'll notice the little ridges and all of those little imperfections on the print piece. So what I did here is the first thing is, of course, you sand with your sponge, right? You sand and sand and sand. This is not even sanded that much right now. I think I just kind of cleaned it off after the support. So one of the things that you use is you can use sponges, you can use sandpaper, whatever you want. This is kind of like a medium coarse sponge, and I just kind of shave off the little imperfections, little things that are kind of hanging off of it. I use little tools like little clippers and things to kind of cut anything that's just kind of protruding. Next step is if you're gonna mold something, you might want to use actual Bondo on the entire thing. But since I'm just gonna paint, what I'm trying to do, so I go straight to Bondo 3, which is glazing and spot putty. So it says masilla para ilustrado y retoques, which means that this is kind of for finishing and basically polishing off things. So I use that to kind of go in just with my hands. I mean, I use gloves and just kind of get it all over the piece. And then that kind of helps start filling in those ridges the same way that primer would, but this is like an additional step that is really helpful. From there, and these are the actual 4 things that are going to go on the armor. So it was kind of convenient for me, and that's why I decided to kind of do it this way. From there, I go to Oleum Automotive primer, and this is one of my favorite ones to use. I use it on frames and like the Spider-Man iframes and everything. It's just really nice and thick. So this is without sanding. I mean, no additional sanding aside from the one that I did before I put the putty on. Then you put the putty on, you sand again, and then you add the primer. So as you can see, it's already like kind of filling in the ridges. It's a little bit better, but you might get a little bit of droopiness. You see that? So you're still going to sand this piece. Sand, do primer, sand, do primer. Do that step a couple times until you're happy with how smooth the piece is looking. Lastly, this is kind of where I'm at with this one right here. So you can see it's a lot smoother now. For this, I use 2000 sandpaper here and just kind of wet sand, and that will just kind of help get rid of most of, like, you see some of these areas are already pretty smooth. Some of these areas still need sanding, but you already get an idea of how this should look to be convincing as a machine part, right? As if it was a metal part. Here, I'm gonna still sand a little bit more with the 2000, and then I'm gonna hit it with another primer, a different primer. This Rust-Oleum Paint Plus primer. This one's black because every time you paint something metallic, you wanna start with a nice black surface, a nice even black surface. You know, if it's gonna be shiny, you might wanna do some gloss black, but anything you're gonna do, the black is always a good starting point for shiny paint jobs, okay? So there we go. So now what I'm going to do is hit this with the extra primer, and I'm gonna paint this, and what I'm gonna be using is Tester's metallic. It's like, let me see what the actual color is, because I use this for, so yeah, it's just metallic silver. I use this all the time when I'm trying to do like topical weathering on something, a helmet or something, a prop, and I just want to like little shiny accents. This is what I use. So I'm going to be hand painting this instead of using a can. At first I was going to do this like brushed like silver can, but then I was like, nah man, I want to use the Rust-Oleum because then it'll be a little bit thicker and a little bit shinier, a little bit nicer. So from there, the last step is I'm going to hit it with the airbrush, and I have this like custom paint that I already had from a Robocop armor that was a foam armor that I have from a while back, and the paint job is already done, so that's perfect. But this is already has the golds and the purples and the blues and the silver that you need for the armor to kind of have that hue that kind of changes with the light. Okay, so it gives it that effect. So that last step I'm gonna do with the airbrush. So let's just go into the final step for this, which is this primer, and start painting it. All right. All right, you guys, so we are almost down to the last step here. As you can see, I have one of the pieces here that is after the 3 main steps that I showed you guys. I'm gonna show it on both cameras just in case I'm able to get better focus on one and not the other. But compared to the original print piece, what you get straight from the printer, I hope you guys can see the difference here. Mainly, we're trying to avoid obvious print lines like that. The little parts that are rough, you know, where supports are attached. Just, you know, basic, just like prepping for paint. And then with the actual paint job, what I try to go for here was try to mimic like a brushed steel look. If you guys can see that. There is one final step to this. There's the original print. One final step is adding the kind of purplish, bluish gold hues that are visible on the armor when the light hits it a certain way. Now there's a way to do that with you know, cans. You know, you can do, you know, topical, just kind of dusting and brushing on there. There's different ways to do this, you guys. Maybe you guys prefer to actually go in with a brush and paint. Maybe some of you guys prefer just kind of like grabbing the airbrush and doing everything with the airbrush, which is possible, or doing everything with the can, which is also possible. I'm just trying to give you like the basic guidelines. You know, I don't always do it one way. I kind of switch it up for this. Since it's such small pieces, I just figured I would do it with, you know, brush and then just finish it off with airbrush. But yeah, so again, just to kind of repeat, you start out with the basic print. You sand with your sponge or sandpaper, wet sand. Then you do primer, which I already put the can away, but you do the primer. You sand again, primer, sand until you're happy. Then you do a base coat of black if you're trying to do a shiny finish, a metallic finish. And then lastly, you clean with a little bit of alcohol and water and you're ready to paint. So let's give this guy the final little touch to see how it looks with a little purplish hue. So I got my paint already mixed over here. It's gonna get a little loud with the airbrush, so I might just add a little music here or something. I don't need a lot of paint. It's just gonna be just a little bit to do all 4 pieces. And with the airbrush, what we're gonna try to do is just a less is more kind of thing. We're not trying to make the whole thing glow in different colors. We're just basically trying to kind of touch it up here and there, kind of dust it, if you will. Like if you were doing this with a can, you would just like kind of do that. All right, so let me turn this on. Okay, here we go. So you can see just a little bit of purplish hue. Okay, so we're gonna hit this. And this is the kind of paint you need to, this already dries, so I'm gonna touch it with my finger. This is the kind of paint it really works in layers. So the more layers you do, the more visible it is. It's basically just flakes, metallic flakes. So let's put it against white over here. So compared to this, which I haven't finished, prepping, but you can kind of see how this is shinier, and then this has that little bit of a purplish hue there. I don't know if the camera is going to pick it up. It's very faint compared to just the brush. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and do all four and then just kind of show the final product on the armor installed and maybe try to get a better shot of the effect there. All right, so the very last step I'm gonna do here as I sign out is take apart my gun, my airbrush, so that I can clean it, because you always want to clean it after you're done, because that's it would have been a time saver before. That's why I had to cut and clean it and then resume painting. What I'm using here is a little bit of Windex, and running out, so I'm just gonna dump a little bit in here. And a little bit of the airbrush cleaner solution, which you can get any place that sells airbrush stuff. This brand is by Cretex. Did I turn this on or not? Can't remember. Let me see. Here we go. I turned it on, but I didn't hit record. So just so you have a nice overhead shot of this. So the Cretex, just a couple of drops of that. The Windex usually does the job. You don't need this if you have Windex. And then basically take apart your airbrush. This is an Iwata that I've had for many years, and it's still my favorite airbrush. I have other airbrushes. I have Apache one, I have another Iwata, but this is the first one, the first Iwata I got, and I still pretty much use this the most. Actually, I'm gonna throw them in here because that's what this is for. And yeah, so you always want to, especially if you're using some of this thicker paints, the ones with flakes are usually a little bit thicker. So you want to make sure you clean it afterwards, so that way the paint doesn't just dry up and give you trouble afterwards. See, like this already kind of had a gooey paint residue. So you always want to take just take it apart. I know it's like easier to just kind of like go into the needle and just kind of use one of these little guys and be like, come on. But when you're painting with the thicker paints, you're gonna be glad you actually took it apart. Now you don't need to leave it like overnight or anything. Just give it a soak, maybe 20 minutes, half hour, and then just dry the pieces, and then you're good to go. So that was it, you guys. Hopefully you found it helpful, and those tricks apply, you know, to any large scale pieces you might be painting as well. I'm going to be doing this Winter Soldier mask for somebody, and it's all 3D printed as well. So I'm going to be following the same exact steps that I showed you to finish this guy for someone. I think it's going to look pretty cool. I'm going to incorporate some fabric mesh here to make it look like the movie, and try to get this to look rubberized. I may try out plastic dip on there, see how that looks, to make it look like it's a rubber mask. But that's it, you guys. Hopefully you found it helpful. If you do like videos like this, you know, sub, and I post here a little after I've posted on my Patreon. These tutorials, I usually post them first up on my Patreon, and I do have like some exclusive stuff on my Patreon as well. I know these are crazy times right now, so if you cannot afford to subscribe to Patreon, don't worry about it. I usually bring pretty good content, tutorial stuff that I think will help out people over eventually. But if you do want to check out the Patreon, it's just patreon.com/elfet. Check it out. I have a lot of like Spider-Man stuff on there, just like more stuff that I love personally, as well as tutorials and that kind of thing. So if my Patreons are watching right now, thank you so much. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you guys on the next video. Bye.